Let's jump over to earnings. You brought up bank earnings, and we've got earnings palooza getting ready to start up again. And this is always, I think, a fun time for stock nerds like us, just because it gives us something to do. I mean, something to read, something to talk about. It's always interesting to find out what's going on under the hood, so to speak. And it does look like, we look at some of the data that comes out. FactSet data shows that actually earnings. Third quarter S&P 500 earnings are forecast to actually show a decline now versus a modest gain not all that long ago. We talk a lot about on this show a lot about the bank earnings and how banks have been working in somewhat of a challenging environment with these low interest rates. It just hasn't given them a lot of wiggle room in regard to profitability. It doesn't seem like that is going to be getting any easier anytime soon. What's your headline here as we go into earnings season for the banks in particular?
Well, first of all, the banks are not going to be part of that earnings decline that you're talking about. Not the big banks anyway, for the most part. The point to remember with the banks is that they've been buying back stock hand over fist over the past year.
Yeah.
So if you buy back, say, 10% of your outstanding shares and your earnings per share jumps up by 10% as a result, you really didn't earn any more money. You're just the buybacks are very distortive of bank earnings.
We call that putting lipstick on a pig, Matt.
Yes.
Is that too harsh?
I've heard that expression. But like Citigroup's the first one to report on Monday, and they're expected to report a nice earnings gain. I want to say the consensus is for about 18% year over year, but the majority of that is going to be due just to buybacks.
Yeah.
So with the banks, the thing to keep in mind is when it comes to the actual headline number and how it compares with the year before, take that with a big grain of salt. The thing I would pay most attention to is how interest rate dynamics and any economic headwinds are affecting the bank's profitability. For example, as the Fed has been raising rates over the past couple of years, we've seen interest margins expand for the most part at these big banks.
Sure.
So and that's a great side effect of rising rates. The Fed hasn't cut rates yet, but the market's kind of expecting them to. So we want to see if that's kind of factoring into anything at all, if they say anything about it during their conference calls. The other thing is any economic headwinds. Are loan volumes picking up or slowing down? Slowing loan volumes, especially when it comes to like credit cards and things like that, can be a really good indicator that consumers' confidence is starting to tick downward a little bit. So with bank earnings, it's always important to read between the lines when it comes to earnings. But with banks, just because of the massive buybacks, it's really important this time to read between the lines and see how the major indicators are playing out.
Yeah, and I mean it's going to be really. I think we're going to hear a lot of the rhetoric starting to pick up here as we inch closer to 2020, and it is obviously a very big election season. It's going to be very, very interesting to see all of these forces at play here, because it certainly seems like everybody's on a different page.
Yeah, definitely, and I would definitely keep an eye what's going on in these banks all next week. We're lucky in the banking sector because we get to see, the first glance of how everything's doing this quarter. Citigroup kicking things off on Monday. Tuesday, you got JP Morgan, Wells Fargo, Goldman Sachs. Wednesday, Bank of America and US Bank. Thursday, Morgan Stanley, Capital One, BB&T. Theirs will be really interesting because they have the merger coming up. And Friday, you have American Express and Regions, just to name the big ones. And that's all next week. So we will be glued to our televisions and news feeds next week. I can tell you that much.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, we'll have a lot to talk about on this show for the coming months. So, hey, keep your Slack channel open, because I'm sure we'll be kicking around some ideas.